The phoenix seal left the room before Wu did. An attendant lifted it from the low red lacquer table with both hands. No one looked directly at the girl sitting beyond it. Yesterday, men and women had lowered themselves when she entered a room. Today, even the servants seemed unsure what shape their bodies should make around her. The seal was wrapped in yellow silk. Then the silk disappeared into its box. The lid closed with a wooden click. Wu was still wearing the robes of an empress. That was the cruelty of the moment. The embroidery had not changed. The phoenixes still climbed her sleeves. The weight of the headdress still pressed against her scalp. But the meaning had already been taken out of everything she wore. A eunuch stood several paces away, holding the deposition edict. The paper crackled when he adjusted his grip. Wu had been empress for a little more than a month. Now the staff assigned to her chamber would be reduced. Her residence would change. Her family would feel the blow beyond the palace walls. Officials connected to her selection would be questioned and punished. Even the language used to describe her would change. She looked at the closed seal box and asked the only question that still mattered. What happens to my father? The eunuch lowered his eyes. That silence told her more than the edict had. Only weeks earlier, Wu had believed the seal on that table made her the safest woman in the empire. She had been wrong, and the mistake that destroyed her had begun with something far more dangerous than jealousy. It had begun with obedience. Before the palace, Wu had learned that order was a kind of shelter. Her father, Wu Jun, served the state as a military official. Their household did not look like the house of a future empress. There were account books, weapon racks, winter coals stacked carefully, servants who understood that a missed instruction could travel farther than the person who made it. Wu learned early to sit straight, answer only after an elder had finished, and control her face before anyone else could read it. Once, while attendants measured cloth for a formal visit, her father set aside a bow he had been inspecting and watched her correct the fold of her sleeve. "People forgive beauty," he said. "They trust discipline." Wu remembered the sentence. In 1464, discipline appeared to be rewarded beyond anything her family could have imagined. The old emperor died. His son Zhu Jianshen took the throne as the Chenghua emperor. A new emperor required an empress, and Wu was selected. She was still a teenager. The day the decision reached her family, servants moved differently through the house. Voices dropped. Relatives who had always known where to sit suddenly seemed uncertain whether they were still permitted to sit there. Wu saw what rank could do before she even possessed it. At the palace, ceremonial clothing arrived in layers. Silk, pins, embroidered panels, formal shoes. Objects that told every person who saw her that she had moved to the center of the imperial household. When the phoenix seal was placed before her, it looked less like an object than a promise. She would perform correctly. She would protect her family by never embarrassing the office. She would bring order to the inner palace, because order was what an empress was for. For a few weeks, the world appeared to agree. Then she met the woman who taught her that a palace could have two hierarchies at once. Lady Wan was not young. She did not need to be. She had known Chenghua long before Wu entered the palace as his wife. She had been close to him through years, when his own future had been uncertain. By the time Wu arrived wearing the highest female rank in the empire, Wan already possessed something that could not be embroidered onto a robe. History with the emperor. Access to him. The confidence of someone who did not have to ask whether she would be received. Wu noticed it first in small things. A messenger from another household waited at a doorway. Wan's messenger did not. An attendant carrying a tray for one consort stepped aside. The servant carrying something for Wan was waved through. When Wan entered a room, people bowed to the rank she held, but their eyes watched for the rank she did not hold. Wu outranked her. Everyone knew it. Everyone also knew that Chenghua's private loyalty had been formed years before anyone chose his empress. At first, Wu tried to treat the contradiction as a problem of ceremony. If people were careless, she could correct them. If precedence was ignored, she could restore it. If an empress tolerated disrespect, then the office itself would become meaningless. That thought frightened her more than Wan did. Because if the rules could bend around one favored woman, what exactly had Wu been given? The confrontation came quickly. Wan behaved in a way Wu judged improper. The details mattered less than the choice Wu made next. She did what she had been trained to do. She acted as Empress. She ordered Wan punished. The room went still. For one moment, Wu must have felt the power of the seal behind her decision. The office had rules. The rules had consequences. A woman below the Empress had crossed a line. Then someone carried word to Chenghua, and Wu discovered whose anger mattered more than her authority. The Emperor did not defend his Empress. He moved against her. The response was so fast that Wu barely had time to understand that a quarrel inside the women's quarters had become an imperial judgment. The deposition edict attacked her behavior. It also invoked irregularities surrounding her selection. The message was larger than marital displeasure. The court was not merely saying that Chenghua preferred Wan, it was saying that Wu herself had been a mistake. Paper made the humiliation official. Red seals crossed gates. Messengers left the palace. The consequences traveled to people who had never stood in the room where Wan was punished. Wu's family suffered. Officials linked to the choice that had made her Empress were drawn into the collapse. There was nothing she could do to stop it. That may have been the first lesson the Western Palace later taught her, but she learned its shape here. A person with authority is not necessarily the person who controls the consequence. By the time the Phoenix Seal was wrapped away, Wu's old belief had broken completely. She had upheld the hierarchy. The hierarchy had not upheld her. She was not executed. She was not sent home. That would have been cleaner. Instead, she remained inside the imperial world after the world had changed its mind about who she was. The move west was quiet. Fewer attendants followed. Fewer doors opened automatically. The bows became shallower or disappeared. The chambers were maintained, but they were not the center. When evening came, the palace still glowed beyond walls and courtyards. Music still drifted from ceremonies she would no longer attend. Wu placed the empty lacquer case on a table. For several days, she could not bear to move it. Then, one morning, she noticed something strange. The western quarters were quieter. No line of women waited to be received. No ceremonial schedule claimed every hour. No one adjusted the angle of her sleeve because a tiny mistake might be seen by 100 eyes. For the first time since becoming Empress, she could hear rain against the roof tiles. It was not freedom, but she could breathe. And once she stopped waiting for the old world to return, she began to see the one that had always existed underneath it. Power moved through the Western Palace, in baskets, keys, bowls, and footsteps. A eunuch with no noble title could decide which message crossed a locked passage before sunset. A kitchen servant knew which household had ordered extra rice. An attendant carrying medicine could enter rooms where formal visitors could not. A wooden tally opened a gate that an expensive robe did not. Wu began noticing these things because she had little else to command. She learned which servants spoke too much and which could carry a bowl across 3 courtyards without looking curious. She learned that bad news often arrived as an absence, a tray that failed to appear, a familiar eunuch replaced by someone unknown, a door suddenly sealed. She also learned not to react to every insult. The girl who had punished Wan because order demanded it became a woman who could sit through a change in routine and wait to understand why it had changed. Years passed. The empty seal case gathered dust, was cleaned, gathered dust again. Then, in 1470, a sound reached the Western Palace that could not be treated as ordinary. A baby cried where no prince was supposed to exist. The child belonged to Lady Ji, a lower-ranking woman of the palace. He was Chenghua's son. His name would become Zhu Yo Cheng. But when Wu first became aware of him, he was not a crown prince, not a future emperor, and not even a child the palace could safely celebrate. He was an infant whose existence changed the question of succession. That made him valuable. It also made him dangerous. Stories and accusations moved through the inner court about what happened to pregnancies, mothers, and children who threatened powerful interests. Some were repeated with certainty by frightened people. Others grew larger each time they crossed a doorway. Wu did not need every story to be true. She had already learned what favor could do when it felt threatened. Lady Ji understood the same thing. One evening, in a small room warmed by a bronze brazier, Ji sat with the child bundled against her. "You should not be here," Ji whispered. Wu looked at the baby. Neither should he, she thought. That was the problem. If Wu refused to help, she could continue the quiet life she had spent years building. She had survived humiliation. Her food still arrived. Her family had endured. The emperor no longer had a reason to notice her. Helping an unrecognized imperial son would pull her back toward the very machinery that had destroyed her. She crossed the room and closed the door herself. "What does he eat?" she asked. The choice was made that simply, not with a seal, not with an order, with a door closing softly. Keeping a secret infant alive was less dramatic than keeping him hidden. He needed warmth, cloth, food, medicine when he was sick. Someone had to wash him. Someone had to remove waste. Someone had to explain why more rice flour food was being prepared than the household seemed to require. Every ordinary need produced evidence. Wu could not command half the palace into silence. She had to make the child disappear into routines that already existed. A trusted attendant carried small portions inside larger baskets. A servant learned to place one extra bowl beneath folded cloth. Zhang Min, a palace eunuch connected to the network around the hidden boy, became useful because he understood movement, which doors were watched, which questions were harmless, and which curious face should never be seen twice. One afternoon, a kitchen servant stopped an attendant carrying a basket. "There are 3 bowls," he said. The attendant did not answer immediately. 3 heartbeats were enough to ruin 5 lives. Then she lifted the top cloth and pointed to a chipped rim. "One is being replaced." The servant grunted and waved her through. That night, Wu had the chipped bowl broken completely. No one celebrated. They simply slept a little later than usual. The child grew. He learned familiar footsteps before he learned rank. He reached for the people who fed him. He laughed at the sound of rainwater spilling from a roof edge. Once, he smeared rice paste across the sleeve of Wu's robe and stared at the mark as if waiting to discover what terrible palace law he had violated. Wu stared back. Then she laughed, quietly. It surprised both of them. For years, the palace had trained her to think of power as something displayed in front of witnesses. This was the opposite. The most important thing she had ever done depended on no one seeing it. By the time Zhu Youcheng was old enough to run across a room, hiding him had become harder. A sleeping infant could be carried. A growing boy had habits. He made noise. He asked questions. He moved objects. He remembered doors. His hair became a quiet measure of the years. One morning, Wu sat him in front of her with a comb. The dark hair had grown long enough to fall toward his eyes. An attendant asked whether it should be cut. Wu held the comb and did nothing. Once, she would have decided, because rank told her that decisions belonged to her. Now she understood that even care had boundaries. The boy was an imperial son, yet he was still unrecognized. Performing the wrong ritual too boldly could create a question no one wanted asked. Wu smoothed the hair back instead. "Leave it." The boy twisted around. "Why?" "Because today," she said, "you need to look exactly as you looked yesterday." He accepted that answer with the seriousness children give to mysteries adults pretend are ordinary. Then came the illness. It began with heat in his skin and a refusal to eat. The western quarters tightened around the problem. Summoning the wrong physician could expose him. Waiting too long could kill him without any enemy needing to exist. For 2 nights, medicine bowls moved through the rooms. Wu sat near enough to hear his breathing change. On the 3rd morning, he asked for food. An attendant covered her face and cried. Wu did not. She fed him herself, one small spoonful at a time. Hope could be dangerous too. The longer the boy survived, the harder he became to hide. The inspection came during rain. Lantern light appeared beyond a screen door, at an hour when the corridor should have been empty. Someone had changed the guards. Wu heard the first unfamiliar voice and knew immediately that the old solution, acting important, would fail. She did not demand an explanation. She did not send anyone running. She lifted Zhu Youcheng from the floor, handed him to the attendant nearest the rear partition, and began giving quiet instructions. The feeding bowl vanished beneath a stack of cloth. A small cap disappeared into a storage chest. The child was carried behind a screen where lamplight did not reach. Then Wu sat beside the brazier. By the time the footsteps stopped outside her door, nothing in the room seemed hurried. The visitor was a palace official moving through service quarters with eunuch escorts. He asked why an extra medicine packet had been requested 2 days before. Wu looked at the brazier. "I was ill." The man glanced at her. Once, the sight of a former empress might have made him nervous. Years had passed. Her danger seemed to belong to another reign of memory. He accepted the answer. The footsteps moved on. Behind the screen, Zhu Youcheng had not made a sound. Only after the lantern light disappeared did Wu realize she had been gripping her own sleeve so tightly that her fingers hurt. The girl who had once acted at the first insult had learned how to survive an entire crisis without moving from her chair. But stillness could not protect the boy forever. Outside the western quarters, Chenghua had begun to fear that he might have no secure heir. Inside them, Wu knew he already had one. Soon, hiding the truth would become more dangerous than revealing it. The opening came in 1475. The emperor's concern over succession had sharpened. The absence of a recognized surviving son was no longer a private sorrow. It hung over the dynasty. Zhang Min understood the change before anyone spoke it aloud. For years, telling Chenghua about the boy could have destroyed everyone protecting him. Now silence could destroy the boy's future. Wu could not command Zhang Min to speak. That was not how this power worked. She could only decide whether she was ready for what speaking would cost. The night before the revelation, Zhu Youcheng slept badly. He was 5 years old. 5 years of hidden meals, hidden illnesses, lowered voices, and doors closed at the right moment had created a world he understood. The Western Palace was not exile to him, it was home. Wu sat beside the empty phoenix seal case. For years, it had represented the day the palace took her authority away. Now a child slept only a few steps from it, alive because the people in these rooms had learned to work without authority anyone could see. In the emperor's presence, Zhang Min finally spoke. Chenghua had a living son. The secret was no longer theirs. The next preparations were almost unbearable because they looked like celebration. The boy was washed carefully. His hair was arranged. Proper clothing was brought. Attendants checked seams with shaking fingers. For the first time in his life, Zhu Youcheng was being prepared to be seen. He looked at Wu as strangers adjusted his robe. "Where am I going?" "To meet your father." He frowned. He knew what an emperor was. Children raised inside a palace understood rank before they understood distance. But father was a different word. "Will I come back?" Wu had survived deposition, family punishment, years of isolation, and nights listening for footsteps outside a hidden child's room. This question almost defeated her. She could not promise him anything. If Chenghua rejected the boy, the Western Palace might become a place of arrests before sunset. If Chenghua accepted him, stronger hands would take over his protection. Either way, the life Wu had built around him was ending. She straightened his collar. "You must go forward when they tell you." The great doorway beyond the western quarters stood open. Zhu Youcheng walked through it. Wu remained behind. Hours later, news returned. Chenghua had recognized him. The child who had spent 5 years hidden inside the emperor's own palace was now acknowledged as his son. For a little while, relief filled the western quarters so completely that even experienced servants forgot to be careful. Then the next change came. Protection moved upward. Empress Dowager Zhou, Chenghua's mother, could give the boy what Wu never could: open dynastic legitimacy backed by senior rank. Zhu Youcheng left the secret household that had kept him alive. Soon afterward, Lady Ji died. Rumors followed her death, as rumors followed almost every frightening event in that palace. No one in Wu's rooms could prove what had happened. They only knew that the boy had survived, and his mother had not. Victory had arrived carrying mourning clothes. Zhu Youcheng was named Crown Prince. The ceremony belonged to the center of the palace. Wu heard it from the west. Drums carried over walls. Bells marked a future she had helped preserve, but was not permitted to stand beside. Years earlier, exclusion would have felt like another insult to correct. Now she listened until the sound faded. The boy was visible. That was enough. 12 years later, in 1487, Chenghua died. The hidden child became the Hongji emperor. Wu was still the deposed empress. No edict restored the phoenix seal. No ceremony returned her to the position she had lost as a teenager. Instead, something quieter began arriving at her door. Meal trays arranged with unusual care, fine seasonal clothing, provisions and honors associated with treatment close to that of a mother empress. Members of her family benefited from the new emperor's gratitude. One winter morning, an attendant set down an imperial tray beside the old lacquer case. Steam rose from the bowls. Wu touched the edge of the tray and smiled. At 15, she had wanted a title strong enough to force the palace to recognize her. Now recognition came from a man who remembered what she had done when she had no title at all. For a time, that was enough. Hongji ruled for years. Wu grew old inside the same palace system that had tried to make her irrelevant. Then, in 1505, the boy she had helped hide died before she did. The trays still came. The courtyard became quieter again. And 4 years later, Wu's own life reached the final argument over what she had been. Wu died in 1509. Even then, the palace had not finished deciding her rank. The powerful eunuch Liu Jin wanted her handled according to a much lower palace precedent, including cremation. Grand Secretary Wang Ao objected. The dispute did not restore Wu as empress. It prevented something worse. In the end, she received consort-level burial rites. Not the full rights of a restored empress, not the humiliation of an ordinary palace woman, a compromise, like so much of her life. Her funeral procession moved toward Jinshan without the full phoenix standards that would have proclaimed the identity she had once worn for barely more than a month. The absence was visible. Years earlier, in a chamber still heavy with imperial embroidery, an attendant had wrapped her phoenix seal in yellow silk and carried it away. It never came back. But by the time Wu went to her grave without it, the 5-year-old boy who had once crossed a red doorway from her hidden quarters had already worn the dragon crown.